fat. Here we go. What's up, comic book fans? Pete here from Comic Books Transformed, where me and my good friend Brian over there discuss comic books that have been adapted into movies and streaming shows. Today, we are continuing our discussion of X-Men 97. Last week's episode was just this monumental event, and we were raving about it. We couldn't even really accurately discuss it because we just were so excited. Brian, do you feel like this week's episode was a satisfying follow-up to episode 5?
Honestly, yes, because you have to, when you have something that monumental happen, you have to change up the pace a little bit.
Yes.
And I think that's the perfect way to kind of follow up it with something like that.
Yeah, really well said. I just read this book on writing by Chuck Wendig, and he said that with storytelling, you are always giving oxygen to the flame and you're taking the oxygen away. And I think that in episode 5, they were just pouring oxygen, maybe even lighter.
No, that was gasoline.
Gasoline, right. Exactly. They were making the flame just, a Roman candle. And now they have to sort of like make it dissipate a little bit to build up to whatever's coming next.
Yes.
Yeah. So with this episode, were you surprised that Professor X was alive?
Well, see, I think we were supposed to know that. I think they told us he was dead because that's the cover story. I think even the X-Men know that he's still alive. I still have yet to watch the final episode and the final season, the original series. I am making my way through it though. I finished season 3 recently, so I only have about 20 something episodes left, I guess, out of the however many there were.
Yeah. Okay, well, good. You can kind of get me up to date with that because I could have sworn that he's not like shot by Gyrick. I thought he had like a disease or something.
That's what they said happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I said this multiple weeks. I really should just go watch that episode and then and then I'll catch up to the rest of the stuff later, I guess.
Yeah. Well, if you guys are watching, you can always tell us in the comments how that ends with Professor X. I know it definitely ends with him like going up with the Shi'ar. So, maybe it is how they explained it.
Yeah, maybe.
So, this was the first episode that wasn't written by Bo DeMeo, or he at least wasn't one of the writers. He's written the first few episodes with Charlie Feldman. It's kind of been like Bo DeMeo and Charlie Feldman, or just Bo DeMeo for the first 5. And now there's no Bo DeMeo for this episode, and it's just Charlie Feldman. Did you feel like there was any kind of difference in the feel of the episode, or did you think it was pretty consistent?
I feel it was pretty consistent, honestly. Yeah. Especially with the storm portions of this. I mean, it felt just like the previous episode did. So, and I think it was a unique. It was interesting to see characters that we didn't see involved or know about the previous events. So we got to watch them see the events or see the reports of the events that happened in the previous episode.
Yeah. That's one of the things that comic books do really well is that you'll get an issue that's like episode 5 where it's this crazy thing happens, and then you might cut to another issue where it's like completely unrelated, but then it kind of loops in by the very end of the issue.
Yes. Yeah.
That happens a lot. So, of course, the opening credits reflect the changes. You're the one that reminded me of this, that Gambit and Magneto are absent from the credits, but they added another X-Man in there, though.
Yes, we get Nightcrawler, which I'm happy about.
Yeah. Do you think that means he's going to be like a permanent member of the team moving forward?
Well, it seems like they are rotating the credits based on who's there. I mean, we did have Bishop in the first few episodes in the credits, and we didn't have Magneto in the first one. So they're just giving us kind of like a heads up on who's the focus characters here. Although Nightcrawler is not in this episode at all. No. Maybe they just needed to fill time, I guess, or something. But I imagine that will be prominent in the remaining episodes.
Yeah, because probably what will happen is moving forward, they'll have Professor X like in his wheelchair in like the credits moving forward.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I imagine he's going to be coming back, soon. Maybe not the next episode, but after that, I imagine, just deep out in space somewhere. It's going to take a bit.
Yeah. And so speaking of deep out in space, we open with like some crazy Shi'ar stuff. There's like a space battle, and then we have the Shi'ar Imperial Guard, and my daughter's like sneaking into a room, but like backward.
In reverse.
That makes it even more stealth. But like the Shi'ar, the Imperial Guard, I love the Shi'ar Imperial Guard, and I've told you this. You know this, that like they're basically stand-ins for the Legion of Superheroes.
Yeah, I totally get that vibe from them. Yes.
Yeah, and that it goes so far to where like Gladiator is essentially Superman, or at least Superboy.
Yeah, I would say Superman.
Yeah,
more so, I guess. But yeah.
So when you rewatched the original cartoon, do you remember that part when like Gladiator just like shows up, he just like tosses Juggernaut into the ocean?
Yep, he throws him pretty far. Yeah,
that was like one of my favorite fucking moments of the original cartoon.
Yeah, no, it sets a great tone for how powerful he is, because the X-Men had to band together to defeat Juggernaut, and he's just like, nope. And
just chucks him.
I also just rewatched the Dark Phoenix saga as part of the recent episodes I was watching, and there's a nice little moment with Rogue and Gladiator facing off too that I really enjoyed from that series.
Oh, nice. Do they do the thing where they explain how his powers are based on like his belief in himself, or is that just not mentioned?
They do not mention that at all.
Yeah. I think that's actually a really cool power, that like if he loses his belief in himself, he gets weaker.
Yeah.
But so then the question at the bottom here I have here was Deathbird in the original series from what you saw?
Yes. Actually, it was an episode I saw today, believe it or not. There was an episode today that I watched today that was the one right after the Dark Phoenix saga, which is funny because this episode involves Cyclops and Corsair and their backstory. So essentially, she's shown in like a little cameo in a flashback to when the Summers plane crashed and then the parents were taken aboard the Shi'ar ship. You see, she's the one that did it essentially, but she doesn't speak in this episode. So I don't know if she shows up at any point again, or if she has any lines, but she definitely was in this episode. So
yeah, it's funny. I looked up like images to use, because I think that I've been pretty lucky with the thumbnails I've had for this show. Like they have some really great images for thumbnails, and I got a whole bunch with Deathbird. I was like, yeah, let me use one with her because she's nice and colorful. But when I started looking at Deathbird thumbnails, I saw that a lot of people were freaking out over the fact that she called Earth I think she called a backwater ghetto.
Milky Way ghetto.
Thank you. Milky Way ghetto.
And I remember that because I saw someone post somewhere a picture of the Milky Way candy bar with the word ghetto superimposed on the bottom of it.
Nice. I think that people took offense to the word ghetto, but I think that people don't realize that like ghetto isn't this sort of like, yeah, of course it can be used in like a racist context, and it might imply like African Americans or like in an urban setting, but the term ghetto itself is like I think it's from
Europe.
A word.
Like it's a real word.
yeah. But it essentially means like an area where people are like poor or like, not as successful, or, just don't have a lot of power. And that's what they were. And the thing is, the Shi'ar are racist too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're racist, and they think very little of us, as we clearly see throughout this episode.
Yeah. So I saw people like kind of getting upset like at Marvel or whatever for like using that term, but it's like they're racist characters and they're describing, I mean, isn't like Bo DeMeo like half African American?
I believe he is, yeah. If not full.
Yeah. I just think that sometimes people are like looking for things that have controversies about.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of words and terms that people are sensitive to using and hearing, and there's always that weird culture that people want to point out when somebody else is doing something wrong, even though the people that it's supposedly demeaning don't care.
Right. Sort of. Right. Exactly. So it's funny because like Professor X does do this whole speech about how the Shi'ar are racist and how they essentially like cut cultures off at their knees. And we see a Shi'ar battle with the Kree. That's actually the opening sequence. And Ronan's in it, but I think that people get excited and they're like, that's Ronan from the MCU, but it's like, no, it's like Ronan from what would be the X-Men cartoon from the 90s.
Yeah, it's funny. I completely forgot Ronan was even in the MCU.
Right, yeah.
Like he was in so little that I completely forgot he was there.
He's actually in 2 movies too.
Yeah, because he's in the most recent. He's in the Marvels, right? In a flashback, or am I wrong?
I think he's referenced in the Marvels, but he's literally in Captain Marvel too.
He's in Captain. Okay,
he's in Guardians 1 and Captain Marvel.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But fighting amongst Ronan's crew, like fighting against his crew, is fucking Vulcan.
And that was my exact reaction. Holy shit, it's Vulcan.
Yes. But as exciting as it was to see him, weren't you kind of disappointed that like he's just sort of like a member of the Guard?
No, I'm honestly not, because I think there's room for that to change, because he could have his memory suppressed or something like that. He wasn't always crazy mad with power, and I think there is potential for him to grow and change into that potentially. I would love to get a War of Kings kind of thing going on in this, but I mean that would require a lot of outside characters.
Right, very true, very true. The Guardians and stuff. I mean, who knows what they got planned for this show?
Yeah.
When we get to the end of this episode, I really want to do some fantasy booking with you, because I'm kind of like, where are they going with this?
Yeah.
But let's just kind of wrap up this Shi'ar part. So basically, Professor X, he's alive, and the goal is for him to marry Lilandra, and he'll be like the Empress's, consort or whatever. The Shi'ar are not interested in that. They don't think it's a good idea to have a human, and Deathbird is definitely against it.
Yes. It's funny because Lilandra frames it as being their new emperor. But when he's announced to that council of people, they call him the consort, which is kind of a demotion. I mean, even Charles references it as, "You sure like this is okay?"
Yeah. And so it seems like he hasn't been using his powers at all. And then the episode kind of reaches its like crescendo where he uses his ability and basically brings them all to the astral plane.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, I mean, did you like that sequence where they were all in the astral plane? Like, I didn't think he was actually intimidating enough. And because Professor X can be scary when he uses his powers. And I felt like he was very preachy, but not scary enough. What did you think?
Yeah, they're taking a softer angle to Professor X. Professor X is actually pretty sinister at points,
Right.
And they have not really shown that in this show, I don't think. Maybe they won't, based on how this is resolved here. But ultimately, what happens is that during this little visit in the astral plane here, he gets kind of some visions of what's going on Earth, and realizes that he has to go home regardless of how he feels about Lilandra and all the stuff that's going on in this episode. So, and then, we do see like a vision of Gambit's death there. And I was kind of wondering if, there was a point where Gambit was one of Apocalypse's horsemen. I think he actually was Death as well.
Gambit was Death in the comics, yeah.
I'm kind of wondering if that's like a backdoor way to bring him back, sort of, maybe down the line.
Yeah, well, believe me, this is when we get to the fantasy booking stuff too. I was just listening to the Cerebro podcast, and it was the episode with Kieran Gillen, and he was talking with the host about Mr. Sinister, and they went through Mr. Sinister's history, and there actually was some interesting stuff that Chris Claremont made up for Mr. Sinister that they didn't use, and I'm wondering if that has anything to do with what we're watching now.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I'll get to it. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, from the more recent comics, I definitely have a different perspective on Sinister, because like we were talking about, I think we were talking about Transformers actually too, that, he's he is of course sinister, but he's kind of also like a buffoon in a way. And this version does not show that at all. Like he's just kind of like an evil mastermind here.
There is a part in the original series where like Cyclops just like rips into him and is just blasting him. And back in the 80s, and I think in the 80s, but like definitely in the 90s, it was like Cyclops's blast could hurt Sinister, but otherwise he could just sort of like reform like the T-1000, but like Cyclops's blast would actually hurt him. And I remember in the original cartoon, he's just like blasting him away, and he kind of seems pathetic when Cyclops is blasting him away. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean they show Cyclops blasts him in the third episode. Like you see that kind of green goo forming. Yeah.
The green stuff, yeah, because otherwise, like, because I remember, like, in Executioner Song, like, Bishop, you see, like, the scope from Bishop's gun right next to the diamond, and he just, like, blows a hole in Sinister's head, but Sinister's just standing there, like, fine, with a hole in his head, but you're right, in this show, he's much more, and he's got the fucking, like, fang teeth in this, too. He doesn't have that in the comics.
Yeah, he's got those creepy teeth, yeah.
So we'll get to Sinister though at the end of this episode. Let's bring it to the Storm part now. So the episode's called Lifedeath Part 2, and I assumed that it was going to be like all about Storm, but she actually kind of takes a back seat to the Shi'ar stuff.
Yeah, it sort of feels like a B story, honestly, which is surprising. But I guess we did get half of this in a previous episode, so I'm honestly wondering if that was a complete episode at one point,
right?
And then they cut it up and split it, and that's why it feels more like a backseat here.
Yeah, I was actually just having the exact same thought, because if you took this episode and Lifedeath Part 1, the Storm segment, put them together, it'd be a full episode.
Yeah.
So in this episode, she's attacked by the adversary again, yes. And we get another sort of MCU type Easter egg where Forge is like using his mother's book of magic, and essentially he's doing like a spell like Doctor Strange.
Yes, that was an interesting little thing in there, but yeah, like it makes sense though. Like the Navajo culture, it does have that kind of ritualistic kind of stuff there, so it makes sense that kind of works in the comic book world, at least anyway.
Right. I'm not sure like what the implication is about his mother, and I don't know if like in the comics there's any talk about his mother having any kind of connection to magic. But I mean, he's truly using that kind of Doctor Strange construct where like the rings of gold are going around him, and he's able to get the adversary away, but he's injured and he's infected by its evil. The only way to cure himself, he knows from his mother's book, is to go into this like mine shaft and find this cactus that has this juice that'll cure him. But of course, Storm going into a mine shaft is like a nightmare for her, right?
Yeah, with the claustrophobia, yeah, that's rough for her. But it's a nice way to kind of like overcome your fears, sort of thing, and then kind of have like that rebirth sequence that she goes through.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because in the very first episode of the X-Men cartoon, Storm like uses her powers and she's wearing like, a white, suit and pants, and then all of a sudden she has the Storm costume. You remember that? And so it's like, it's like her costume, her powers affect her costume. It's kind of cheesy, but it's okay.
Yeah, the sequence where she gets the new costume and all that very much felt like Sailor Moon to me.
Yeah, right.
And I heard they actually modeled the sequence after Superman's first flight from the first movie, the first Superman movie too. So that's an interesting little thing.
Yeah, I just watched that recently, and I reviewed it with Mike Bongiorno on Pop Culture Man Children. And there was this one sequence where he just like jumps off a building, and then his like costume it just appears on him. It's not like he like is opening up his clothes and it looks awkward. It's just like it just kind of goes when it's on him. But how do you like that look of Storm now?
Oh, I mean that's the original classic Storm look. I find it so interesting though that like we started this in the 90s era, and then all the things we're doing are things that happened before the 90s.
I know. It's this weird kind of mixture of like 80s stuff, but then there's like references to stuff that's like now.
Yeah. So it's like everything is 80s and then 2000s.
Yeah, so like 2020s.
We're not even doing anything in the 90s anymore.
Yeah, well, except for like cable, right? Like
cable. Yeah, that's true.
But I was going to tell you one thing too. Did you hear anything about the Ms. Marvel Spider-Man kind of controversy recently and Marvel's statement that they made?
Was this about Ms. Marvel's death?
Yes.
Is there a newer statement about it? That was a few months ago. That happened.
Right. The death happened a couple of months ago, but Marvel made a statement recently in response to a podcast.
Oh, no, I haven't heard that.
Okay. I'm going to tell you real quick. I'm actually kind of stealing this from another YouTube channel. Sorry, Benny from Comic Storian, but you guys should watch his stuff too. I just watched a video by him. It's really interesting, where he was saying that Cody Ziegler, who's the writer on Miles Morales' Spider-Man, was on a podcast, and he said that Kevin Feige called up Zeb Wells, who is the writer on Amazing Spider-Man, and asked Zeb Wells to go through with this plan of killing off Miss Marvel so that they could make her be a mutant. And Marvel...
I did hear that.
Okay, so Marvel released a statement saying that's not true, and the comics are very separate from the MCU. We want to keep them separate. And the whole reason why I'm bringing up this little tangent is just because in that statement, they say that the comics are supposed to be 10 years in advance of where the movies are. So there's like 10 years of storytelling between where we are currently in the movies and where we're currently in the comics.
Okay. Which is funny because also the movies are technically in the future for us.
Right. Yeah, we're never gonna fucking catch up. But I like that idea. I definitely like the idea of that the comics have value and that they're still using them to sort of get the ideas for the movies.
Yeah, it's a fantastic sounding board. You know, if something comes out and people rave about it, then obviously you adapt it.
Yeah, right. What's that word where like you kind of test out a project on like certain people? It's like I don't fucking know the word, but it's basically
I know it too, and I feel like spitballing or something like that. I don't know.
Not even it's almost like it's like I don't know. I'll fucking remember it.
Focus group. Focus testing.
Yeah. Like the comics are almost like focus testing for focus group testing for the movies and stuff at this point.
Yeah, I could see how that rumor could get started too, because if I'm not mistaken, Kevin Feige is also in charge of the comics as well.
I think he is at this point. Yeah.
So I can see people. I remember people like kind of getting a little angry and mad. It's like, oh, they're gonna make all the comics like the MCU, and it's funny because a lot of ways the comics are reflecting the MCU. I mean,
1000%.
Look at the Eternals.
Yeah. Well, I think even a better example, the Eternals are a perfect example, but I think even better is the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy and Eternals. Yes. They were not like that at all, really. And then they completely molded them into that. Yeah. I mean, Guardians, they took a little bit from the comics there, but ultimately, yes, after that movie came out and it was a hit, that was the Guardians team, you know?
Right.
But like Eternals, like they changed genders of characters.
Right.
And they had even with like a lore explanation too, just to match the movie that most people don't like.
No. And also for anyone that's watching, is you included John Edwards too. If you get a chance, I would recommend getting the Marvel Unlimited app and just reading as many Marvel comics as you want for $9.99 per month. I don't know if that counts as promotional material in this, but whatever. Anyway, the Eternals comic by Kieran Gillen is fucking amazing too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I read that, but it was a while. I probably read it around the time the movie came out, so I don't remember as much anymore.
Yeah, man, it is amazing how many different tangents were going on versus talking about X-Men, right?
Yeah.
So let's bring it back to the end of this episode and Mr. Sinister. So with Mr. Sinister, it's revealed he's hunting Bolivar Trask, who's the one that essentially unleashed the wild sentinel on Genosha. And Bolivar Trask says something like, "I let you use my DNA to access the Sentinel." And it's implied that like Mr. Sinister is the one that is behind this. Do you think that is the case?
I mean, they said it, and it seems like that. And the title of the next one, of the next episode, also kind of sets up that there's like a hidden mastermind here. And I'm not sure. Like, I feel like they're laying it out a little bit too much.
Right.
That I feel like they want us to think that, and it's really something different. I'm not holding out hope for Cassandra Nova after that tweet from who was it? It's not Bodemea, the other guy who wrote this episode, I think, or animation director or something like that.
Right. Well, the guy. Oh fuck! Let me get his name. But yeah,
it's not important for us to remember you. But he basically said like, don't get your hopes up here for Cassandra Nova being the big bad. I do think that they have something else up their sleeves, and they're making it a little too obvious that it would be Sinister.
I totally 1000% agree. I still kind of stick with my Bastion theory That, like, you know, because last week you said something really brilliant. You were like saying that like maybe there's sort of like a proto Orcus thing going on where it's not Orcus, just like last episode. It wasn't the Quiet Council. It was like this Genoshan thing.
Yeah.
Because one other thing they did show in the credits in this episode, in the opening credits, was they showed a Sentinel. It might have even been like Master Mold, and they showed it's like open chest, and there was a person standing on in the open chest.
Yes.
And they're in like silhouette, so you don't know who it is. But I mean, I was like, that could be Bastion right there.
Yeah. And I think that would be an interesting thing to do that. I think it's too on the nose for it to be Sinister, I think.
Right. So that leads to my final question for today, which is like, why would Sinister want to work with a group like that that's exterminating mutants? I'd like to get your theory on it, and then I have a theory too.
Oh man, I want to say something that.
What?
How far are you in the current comics?
Okay. So let me give you my theory, because this will answer your question. So with Mr. Sinister, there's, and spoilers for the current X-Men comics, but there's like the 4 Sinister clones. One is Mr. Sinister. One is like Madam Right or Mother Righteous. One is like this guy in a globe. I can't remember his fucking name.
Orbis Polaris.
Thank you. Yeah, Orbis. Right. Okay. And then the other one is Dr. Stasis. So it's like this Sinister could be kind of like Dr. Stasis working with Orcus.
Maybe, but this is the traditional looking Sinister that has the diamond head, and
right.
You know, because all these Sinisters all have the different card suits.
Right.
Ultimately, they're all clones.
They're all clones of Nathaniel Essex. Yeah.
So
were you going to say something else that was like more spoiler?
Yeah, I think so. I was going to say something else that might spoil some more recent comics, but based on the fact that, you know, this was pitched back in 2020 and they've been working on it for a long time, I don't think they could have possibly incorporated things that are so recent that are just coming out right now in the comics. So it's probably not what I'm thinking.
Holy shit. Okay. Because I'm pretty close to being caught up with the Krakoa era. I'm almost at Hellfire Gala 2023.
Okay.
Right now. But, you know, as a matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, I actually have my list right here of all my.
Oh my God. That is so many comics.
and this is like a page I made. I have like 3 or 4 other pages like this too. I've gone through them all.
See, the problem you're going to run into, though, is that you're going to catch up to the point where you're 6 months behind or something like that, and then you're not going to be able to read anything anymore.
Totally agree. But my goal is that when I reach that point, it's going to be when the Krakoan era is over, and I'm just not going to care.
Yeah.
You know?
Probably,
you know? Yeah. But now that we've like alienated most of the people that watch the video, all 5 of them, is there anything else that you want to say about this episode?
I feel like we didn't talk too much about the Storm and Forge stuff there, but I just wanted to just comment that how, you know, that does kind of mirror the whole a portion of the story in Fall of the Mutants, you know, with Storm losing her powers and Forge helping her get it restored. But man, just the mass compression of these stories here, like even Forge got healed in like 3 seconds. Like that, it just shows that. While I appreciate all the attention to these stories there, I am slightly concerned about how much they're condensing into single episodes here, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, I remember being bothered when they did Age of Apocalypse on the old show, and it wasn't even exactly like it. It was like this weird time travel show where you just got a glimpse of the Age of Apocalypse. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's in season 4. I'm pretty sure that I'll be watching soon.
Yeah, and it's only like 2 episodes too.
Yep.
You know, so yeah, that does kind of bother me, because with comics, it's just this like long drawn out thing, and a lot of times with movies and shows, it's like much more. It's like a hyper version of it.
Yeah.
So, what is next episode? Episode 7 it's called Bright Eyes, right, or Shiny Eyes? Or
something. Something like, I think it's called Bright Eyes, and we are going to get back to the main team here, and they're going to be tracking down Trask. And they're going to hopefully figure out, you know, who's behind all this, if it is Sinister or isn't.
How do you think? I mean, because obviously you think Bright Eyes or Shiny Eyes, whatever the hell, that you think it's like Cyclops, but like, what do you think that might be about?
It's Vulcan.
It's Vulcan. All right, cool. Total shift. That won't make any fucking sense.
Yeah,
But
I'm so intrigued by, Bo DeMeo said that, episode 5 was a warm up, and that the last 3 episodes, the finale is going to be bigger. I'm so curious what they're going to do or adapt, or maybe it's something totally original. Who knows?
I wonder when the Captain America shield shows up. If it's like,
yeah, I'm very curious about that too. Yeah.
Like how does that fit in?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, I guess we will have to tune in next week to find out. So, guys, if you liked me and Brian discussing this episode of X-Men 97, we'll be back next week. Make sure that you subscribe. You can give us a like. Also, let us know what you've been thinking about the series in the comments. And Brian and I will be here back for X-Men 97, episode 7.